Good evening, everybody. Prepper Journey here. Glad you could stop by. It is Monday, December 28th, 2020, and I am reporting to you from north central Idaho. I'm being enveloped by the fog, the blue fog. Interesting stuff. It's basically freezing fog. I don't know if you've ever been in freezing fog, but figured I'd go ahead and pull off the side of the road instead of driving along and doing this video, so be safe. I was thinking about a prepper video I'd seen recently, and where he was talking about a real life scenario. And it's happening to a lot more people right now. Day by day, it's happening to more and more people. And my heart goes out to those folks because they're dealing with some SHTF. It's a nightmare for a lot of people. And so it got me thinking that this would be a good video to talk to you about, what would you do if this happens to you? And it may have already happened to some of you. And it would be great to hear your thoughts. And I'm sure others who view this video as well would like to hear how anybody out there is dealing with this. I've got my thoughts on how best to deal with it, but it's not always the best in all cases. So my wife and I, we were in a regular sticks and bricks home we were renting, and we faced a situation where we had to move out a few months ago. And the homeowners wanted to move back into their home and bring their family. We live out here off the beaten path, and so it's a good place to circle the wagons when things start getting rough out in the world. So I can't blame them in their desire to want to return and bring their family, or family that can get there, to stay with them. Large house, so and they're on some good land, so I don't blame them at all for wanting to make that decision. And they asked us very nicely to leave, and so we packed up everything. Most everything we had, we put into storage units. At one point, we've had 4 storage units, and we're trying to consolidate down to 3. We're in the process right now, and eventually we'll dwindle it down to 2. But we did this because we're having to live in an RV now. Because of the exodus of everybody leaving the cities in California, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, the places where things are getting really rough, where you have left-leaning liberal governors and mayors who are running their cities into the ground for the most part. And even their states are hurting, California especially. New York's a good example of that, but I'm over here on the West Coast, so we'll just kind of stick to things over here. So land prices and housing and rentals are going through the roof right now. And I don't think it's as bad out on the east side of the United States, but out here, when you've got the mountains around and everything, I guess everybody's got this idea that you need to head to the hills because the crap is hitting the fan in the cities. So they're uprooting and taking their families and doing what they have to do, putting their houses on the market and getting the heck out. It's driving the prices of everything up around here as far as real estate goes. So my wife and I were faced with non-availability of a rental and this is at the beginning of the winter, so we wanted to stay out here. We didn't want to head back east where we came from originally a few years back. Three years ago we moved from Wyoming. 6 years before that we moved from Florida, and we didn't want to head back that way to be with our family, our extended family out that way, because we know things are going to get bad, especially in the major population areas. So we got an RV. We actually bought one while we were in Pinedale, Wyoming, and brought it over here. It was a 1979 Winnebago. It needed some TLC. We got it for a fairly good price. We paid a little bit more than we should have, but that's another story. Everything was working fine on it until we got it out here. It sat for a winter, and then we started to have to, get it ready to move with us over to an RV park. And we got ourselves another RV, a 30-footer, which was a 15-year-old RV, which was fully functional. Everything worked on it, and we had enough cash on hand with the help of family members, mainly, to be able to acquire this RV. Also, a small towable trailer, a cargo trailer, to haul stuff back and forth to the storage unit, and to have extra stuff available there with us at the RV park in our towable trailer, our cargo trailer. So, because as you well know, there's not a lot of room in an RV, period. Whether it's underneath it or in the cabinets or whatever, you can't prep very easily without being able to put your stuff somewhere else. So that's why we got the towable trailer. And we have our storage units too, to be able to put things in, and food storage and such. And all our preps. We've got a lot of preps kind of spread out between the storage units and inside our RV. So we're doing okay. We were fortunate in the fact that we had family members that were willing to help us, because we didn't have much of a savings. And so I'm telling you this because I know that there are a lot of people out there, families even, who are being evicted at this time. And they're left wondering, what are they going to do? What's the next move? I just watched a story where a family just got evicted, and they were told by law enforcement that they were going to be forcibly removed if they had 72 hours to get out. And I don't think they're alone on this. I think that there are others who are experiencing this as well, and it's scary. So I thought I'd talk about this. I mean, to get us our gears and our minds thinking about mainly you guys, because I've got a plan. And I'm wondering if you guys have a plan too. Because if it hasn't already hit you, it likely will, unless you've got the financial means and you've got a home off the beaten path and you're able to protect it, you and your family and or your group that you have surrounded yourself with, to be able to defend what is yours, what is your neighbor's, what's your friends, and so forth, community. So we find ourselves amongst relative strangers in an RV park that we didn't know very well, but we're getting to know them, and there's some good people, and they are just as concerned as we are, for the most part, as to what's going on. However, most people who live in an RV, in an RV park for very long, it's because they don't have the money to travel and go to different places, which a lot of people do. They use it as a vacation tool to be able to go enjoy RVing across and see all the different sites across the nation. And so a lot of people are not able to do this now because they don't have the money to do it, and they're stuck. They're stuck in their RVs wherever they happen to be. We're fortunate in the fact that we both have income still coming in. We're able to pay for our site on a monthly basis at this point. But even that's tenuous because nothing's guaranteed, and we may not have our jobs in the next month or two. So we have to have a plan together. Our plan is to find a spot. We've got some in mind where it's out in the National Forest area, and we're going to take at what we can and take it out to that location and set up in our RVs out there. We won't be paying rent to anybody, but we will not have full hookups either, and we'll be off the grid. So we'll be totally on our own. I've got a small solar setup. Generators, I've got a few generators. We've got plenty of gas. We plan on beefing up our gas stores as well, and propane as well. So we have heat via propane, and out in the woods, of course, you've got an opportunity to have plenty of wood. So part of our preps is, making sure we had a good chainsaw and the equipment to maintain it. Gasoline to gas it up, and 2-cycle engine oil for it, those kind of things. So we've got all that on standby. Stay bill for the gas for long-term storage. We will have to, at some point, we'll have to conserve. We will have to manage our consumption of any fuels. So that's our plan. And we're going to see it through. If we can't stay in the RV park where we are at, we're going to find a place in Boondock. But I know that there are others who don't have the means and don't have the support to be able to do that. So you need to think about what's your plan. Where are you going to go? Do you have family you could go to if you could? If you run out of gas, are you prepared to go by foot? Do you have a good backpack? Do you have good footwear? Do you got good clothing? Do you have enough food and water? And if you don't have enough food and have a means of water filtration, you can find water along the way, and you can hunt, you can trap small game and so forth. So yeah, it's good to think about these. What if the situation? If you had the means, I highly suggest that instead of tent survival or living in an ice cave, that you see about getting a used camper or RV. If you have a vehicle that you could tow it with, you could get a small towable trailer, a used one, 10 to 15 years old, where the plumbing still works. You still got the ability to, you can dig a hole wherever you park it, if it comes to that, and you can just dump your black water tank into a hole. You might want to get a couple of bags of some lime to be able to treat it, and you can catch water if you're not near a water source. I recommend being near a water source and having a Berkey water filter in your RV, so you can clean the water so it's purified and ready to drink. There's going to be a lot of people out there trying to get into the wilderness and do the same thing, whether they have a tent or whether they have an RV. So security is going to be something you need to focus on. You need to have a means of self-defense, and you need to set up a security plan around your perimeter. There's a lot of different methods on setting up security, perimeter security, that involves noisemakers, things that trip wires and things like that, that will alert you. if there's an intruder in your area. Cameras are always best, but if you don't have a solar system that is beefy enough to operate these things, especially at night while you're trying to sleep, because you've got to sleep sometime. And you need to set up a watch cycle if you've got others in your group. And if you've never had a solar system before and it's meager, you are really going to find out what energy management is all about, because there's a lot of things that you're not going to be able to power, and if you do power things up, there's only a certain amount of time you can use the stored energy that you have in your battery. So if you have the opportunity to get an RV, see if you can beef up the battery banks a little bit, and go to Harbor Freight and get some of those amorphous panels at the very least, and hook it up. Now, most RVs have it set up to where if you're plugged into shore power at the RV park or such, that it will automatically trickle charge your battery bank, so you don't have to rely on your solar power. But when the grid goes down, you're going to be strictly on those solar panels, and you're only going to get so much on good days to be able to charge those batteries up. And then, depending upon how beefy your battery bank is going to determine how much usage you'll have during the day and into the night. So yeah, there's a whole lot to think about when you're relying on solar energy to meet your needs. Good communications is very important. You should have at least a couple of two-way walkie-talkie style. Get some GMRS or FRS radios that have about it's 5 watts of transmission power, and you can do about a good solid mile of line of sight. And so in your group, it would be good to have at least 2 at a minimum to be able to communicate between the your main residence where you're staying at, your RV or your tent, and then the person who's roaming about, maintaining security in your perimeter, keeping watch on everything. And if there's only 2 people, you're going to be doing, either 6 on, 6 off, or you're going to be doing 12-hour watches. So it's, something like that. It's going to be tough. Or even 8-hour watches. So you'd be doing an 8-hour, then the next person do 8-hour, next person do 8-hour. And it gets tough, because you can't, if you're watching and you're supposed to be just dedicated to watching, you're not going to be doing other things. So it leaves very little time between even 2 people to be able to get the things done to maintain a good camp, and do the cooking and the cleaning and everything else that's involved with day-to-day living. So I highly recommend getting a group together of 3 to 5 at a minimum to try to keep things going. I've got a family of 4, so myself, my wife, and my 2 boys. My other 2 girls are away, and I don't know if they're going to be with us when things get really bad. So that's really important. So that's the problem with being a lone wolf and doing it all on your own, is you don't get any sleep. I mean, every noise is going to keep you up. You're going to be so exhausted and paranoid, you're going to lose it. It's going to be really tough. So there's strength in numbers, and you really need another person or more to be able to get through if you're going to be hiding and going gray and just trying to survive when things go sideways. And things are likely going to go sideways in the cities. And so the safest place is in the rural areas, country, to get away. If you're going to be bugging in the city, then you'd better have thought it out very well, and you'd better network with others who are doing the same thing, link arms, because the gangs and criminals are going to be the first ones to take advantage of the situation without rule of law. and it isn't going to be pretty. So yeah, beef up your skills. Do what you can while you can in the next month or two. Learn, how to cook from scratch, making what you've got stretch. If you're like me and you look like you're well fed and you're healthy, you might want to think about losing some weight, because people are going to eyeballing you. And if you look like you're fat and happy, then they think that you got a lot of food, and they're going to be coming knocking on your door a lot. So, and cache some of your food and supplies and things like that if you can. Hide them up. One of the things I did was I bought some, I think they're 8-inch or 10-inch tubes, PVC tubes, cut them down to about 6-foot lengths, and put caps on the ends. One of the things that you could do is put a bunch of food and supplies, even guns, weapons, inside of these caches, and then in a strategic place, without anybody looking, of course, bury them. And later on, when you have to bug out, you could even set it up to where you get to one of your caches along the way, so that you could resupply, and have extra stuff at your final destination to be able to unearth and pull out of the ground, and benefit from those caches, and beef up your supplies at that point. So that's part of the plan of knowing where you're going to go when you do bug out, and setting things up beforehand. If you don't have a plan, it's not going to be easy to be able to get through this. So I stress having a plan, and I don't know what's going to come first, the rioting and the looting and that craziness, or if the grid down situation is going to happen, where you're going to lose electricity, and it's going to force that into happening a lot faster. I've read a lot of novels, a lot of fiction novels on this, and I've looked at it from many different angles, and it's doable, but you got to go into it with an open mind, and with patience, and try to have some decent survival skills, be adaptable, and network with others, meet others who can benefit what you know, add to what you know, and increase your ability to survive. I hear there's a lot of tent cities starting to pop up in the cities already, and that's not good. That's not a good sign. And we've seen this happen before in places like Argentina. Over the past few years, it's gone from bad to worse to ridiculously horrific. And we've seen also in other places, in Africa, for instance, where these kind of things have played out. And so you gotta stay clean. You gotta keep up your hygiene. You gotta keep up your health. You're gonna trim down because you're gonna be working really hard and you're gonna be stressed out. So it's really important to have a balance of good food, balance of protein with carbohydrates to keep your energy level up. You don't want to lose your muscle mass, but you could lose the bad fat that you don't want. But but you still got to maintain your caloric intake on a daily basis, your minimums. So you need to do a little bit of study on that and find out what food preps you're able to get. How many calories can you eke out of all that, and have a balance of the nutrients that you need, plus the protein and the carbs. And you could do quite a few hours of research on that before you really get your mind wrapped around it and you feel comfortable with it. But that's an important thing to be thinking about. And for yourself, it's one thing, but when you have to expand it to a family like myself that has 4 people in my family, those numbers start growing, and so does your food supply, your need for water, and all that other stuff. So, a lot to think about. But but start getting a plan together. If you haven't already started to get a plan together, you need to, get out some paper, start jotting down some ideas on what it is you think you need. Run it by some preppers in the community. Feel free to comment here that you would like some input. I'd be glad to start up an email conversation with you, and I'd be able to help you out. My wife and I, we've been doing this for a long time, so we're not fearful, we're not scared, because we have put quite a bit aside, and we have somewhat of a plan. Ain't the greatest plan. I wish we were still in a sticks and bricks home, out off the beaten path, where we could actually bug in and fortify our perimeter and everything, but it's not looking like we're going to be able to do that, so we have to adapt. So, assess, adapt, overcome. The old Marine motto there. But where there's a will, there's a way. So as long as you stay hopeful and you don't give up hope, you will figure this out and you will get through. It will be uncomfortable at times, but you will also still feel joy, and there will still be good times to look forward to. Don't lose hope. As for me and my family, we will pray. We will search the scriptures and try to hold on to our testimonies and stay faithful. Faith is a very important thing, I think, to get you through, to keep a positive mindset, and knowing that your prayers, if they're heartfelt prayers and sincere, and you do it humbly, that they will be answered. You will be blessed, and you will see through the hard times ahead. I don't know if these words are of any comfort to some of you who are going through this hardship at this time, but for those who possibly face this, I hope these words of encouragement will help you, will assist you in getting you going in the right direction. There are a lot of prepper channels out there. I've already talked about it in my other videos. Please go check these guys out and gals. They have great ideas and a lot of great videos. So while we still have the internet, please load up. And also remember to, if you can, buy yourself some printed books, manuals on different things, self-sufficiency, country living. There are plenty of skills books on medical, field medical books, wild and edible plants, how to make survival shelters and things like that, how to hunt, how to dress out your game, how to trap. And yeah, there's a lot of useful information out there that you should have a good, if you're able to get an RV, then get a hold of a nice small collection of these printed books, so they'll come in handy. If you're having to go by foot, you're not going to be able to have a lot, but if you could carry one book, I would say that, a book on survival handbook of some sort would probably be your best bet. And there's several out there that are really good. On another video, I'll bring some out and I'll actually share them with you, so you'll know which ones to look at. Wanted to mention to you, James Wesley Rawls has a website called survivalblog.com. So I highly suggest you go to Survival Blog. He's got lots of information from many of his followers and fans that they've posted on his website that deal with just a huge plethora of problems that you're likely going to run into as a prepper. And they've addressed and they've gamed just about everything that you could possibly think of. And so he's a really good resource. He's put out a few good fiction books as well, and a couple of prepping books that you might want to check into. But he's got a list of his favorite books that he recommends as well. So I would look at that. That might be helpful as well. But yeah, what James Wesley Rawls goes back quite a bit to the 90s, and I've been following him for years. He's former Air Force intelligence, and he knows his stuff. He really does when it comes to prepping. So, with that, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I'm going to be heading home here. My wife is going to be coming home from work, and it's getting dark. So, and I'm off, and I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my evening, and I hope that you do too. And thank you for stopping by. Prepper Journey out.